Hi everybody, welcome to the Amateur Footy Show. It's going to be a big show for the next hour. Lots of things to talk about. It was a big weekend in the Amateur League. Time to get on with it. I welcome my co-host Gary McIntosh to the show. Macca, how are you?
I'm well, thanks Phil, and running into an old friend of yours today, Ian Aiken. Very lovely man, very sprightly 72-year-old. We spoke about a few of the old days, and he was a bit of a voice of radio going back in the 80s and early 90s.
He was a good man, Bones, no doubt about it. Now, Macca, I've got to ask you this before we go to our special guest. The bye 2 weeks ago, or the break for the centenary game, has it thrown some of the teams off? Some teams look like they had good momentum building up to it, and the break looks like it's slowed them down.
Yeah, look, some teams probably did have a lot of momentum, but some teams needed it for injuries, and there would have been a few teams that got a few back, and that will be helping them greatly. I know it come at a good time for us, but we just keep losing them.
Now, Macca, losing, is your job under jeopardy? Are you feeling any heat? It was a big loss last weekend.
Yeah, there's a little bit of heat. Yeah, for sure. You know, we're not travelling that well, so when you've been at a club for 7 years, there's definitely going to be questions asked, and we'll hang in there.
Now, all right, let's get down to our special guest. He's joined us in the studio. The coach of Old Iggy's, Joe Pedler, joins us. Joe, thanks for coming in.
Boys, great to be here, sitting alongside you two gents.
Yeah, we just talked to Macca about that. You guys were motoring along pretty nicely coming into the break. Coming out of the break, it hasn't gone that well for you.
No, it hasn't gone that well for us. We probably had a couple of tough sides coming up, but we're probably the same. We needed the break for injuries, and we've probably got a few guys back from injuries, and they haven't necessarily played that well. The guys that I dropped may have been a little bit better the last few weeks, so yeah.
You probably, I think it's all right to get players back. I think it's actually getting the game time into them, and that's where you've got to be a little bit patient with them, I suppose. And that's probably what you're looking for at the moment. There's a few of them blokes just to get up to speed again.
Yeah, it is, and I think that building momentum is what you refer to, and that's where you get the guys that are on the park and they're training and got game time into them. Their form comes quite easily, whereas they had 2 or 3 weeks off and you expect them to be back in good form straight away. It's a bit hard for them.
All right, the availability of some of your big name players, because some of them, like a Josh Carr, for example, he's got radio commitments, he's there and then he's not there. And some of the other big names, how frustrating has that been for you?
Well, I suppose the good thing is that Josh Carr missed a lot of his games early, whereas now he's only going to miss 1 or 2 games in the second half of the season. So that works out well. If it was the other way around, that may be a little bit frustrating. We've probably got a few ageing stars or ex-stars that are probably going to struggle a little bit in the second half of the year. So if we can keep injury free, we're going to be dangerous come finals time. Obviously we're going to make finals, but come finals time, if we can get in there and get everyone on the park, we'll be dangerous.
Well, one of the things about Amateur League, we talk about it with Mac and the other coaches, recruiting players, it's normally pretty tricky. Josh Willoughby's an outstanding pickup for you guys. How did you convince a player like Josh to come and play for Old Iggy's?
Josh Willoughby went to Sacred Heart, so there's a lot of pressure on him to go to Shocks, but the great thing we had up our sleeve is behind every man is a great woman, and his partner is a former vice captain, Abby Warhurst, and her dad, Tom Warhurst, is a former club coach. Josh is also working in the family business Joggers World, so he knew that as soon as he left the Bays, he'd have to come play for us.
So Big Tommy put the squeeze on him, did he?
Big Tommy puts a squeeze on quite a few people and did in his day, and Josh is no different. So
good man,
that was actually quite easy. I didn't have to do too much hard work there at all. All the work was done for me.
Sorry, Phil, just talking about your top end of your players with, obviously Carlo Calabrese, who's getting a bit long in the tooth as well, and Josh, Big Whitey, Whiteman, all them players, very good players in their day, and still very good players now in this competition. Your bottom end, your bottom 6. How do you view them compared? Is that where your weakness is in your side, you reckon?
Yeah, I think coming from Div 3 to Div 2, that the big thing we've noticed is the intensity and speed, and that's something where you get a guy like you've got Calabrese, Whiteman, myself, Steve White. You can get a kick, but you can't keep up with the young guys. So that's the big thing that we're noticing at the next level. You got to get a team like Ross Trevor, full of young 20-year-olds. We just can't keep up with them at the moment, so we've got to modify our game style to suit. Our bottom 6 have struggled, and they really did struggle in the first 4 games, and then they got used to it and away we went. But that's the key, that's the difference. Your bottom 10 players win or lose your games, definitely.
All right, you talk about that, Joe. You're playing and coaching, so that's a really tough assignment. How have you found that?
Harder work than I thought it would be, to be honest. Luckily, I got 2 great assistant coaches, Julian Waite and Ant Sheehan, 2 Port Magpies boys. And they've been fantastic on the sidelines for me. But yeah, it's a lot to think about. That's probably the biggest thing. The amount of things that's flowing through my brain during a game is a lot different to what I thought it would be. And it puts a pressure on you a lot more.
You get a feel for it because you're out there, so that's the advantage in playing and coaching. Are there times you sense you need to change the tempo of the game? Are you able to influence that in some way being out there?
Yeah. The other thing is that when I can sense those things, my runner, Antshi, works twice as hard because he's running the way out to me and then out to someone else. But that's definitely your advantage because you're in the thick of it. The downside is that your message doesn't necessarily come across as well as perhaps having that runner right next to you, I think. And perhaps just having a bit of time to reflect rather than trying to get a kick at the same time.
All right, let's talk a bit about your career. Woodville, West Torrens, you were there for a while?
Yeah, I was there for 10 years. Yep, I'd played my juniors. I come from the Eyre Peninsula, came across and played my juniors at the Magpies. And then had a year at Port Districts before going to the Eagles. So I was there for the 10 years at the Eagles. So yeah, great times.
Yeah, 122 games. You played a fair few reserves games and you were under the tutelage of the great Ronnie Fuller, who's I know is a very hard-nosed character. Has your style of footy been influenced by him mainly?
You'd love to say no, but I've played every game under Ron Fuller, so it definitely is. You know, that there's so much of the things that I say that I think, gee, that's exactly what Ron would have said. That's a little bit boring, but yeah, it's about, he was very, very clear with what he wanted, and he was very simple in his approach, and I certainly think that I've kind of adapted into that mould, you know, without knowing it, I suppose.
So when you adapt into that mode, but you're playing as well. So let's look at training on a Tuesday, Thursday night. Are you in every drill, or do you take a step back sometimes so you can see how that's working?
Yeah.
Especially when you're struggling to breathe.
Yeah, that's right.
I'm going to step back and have a look at this.
Yeah, the tough ones I do. I do a bit of both. So sometimes I just have to sit out of a drill, particularly if it's a new drill and it's not working. If it's one of those ones where we've done 3, 4, 5 times before and everyone knows what's going on, I'd join in. So I probably have trained the least amount that I would have in my footy career this year, just because I do that, you know, sit back, look, see what's happening.
Now, I'm going to go far left here for an incident that happened a fair while ago when you made your way to the tribunal for a bum pinch on one of the Gowans boys. One of them, they didn't smile at you when you did it. That's the first thing I want to ask. And did they help you get off?
They helped me get off. Yeah, I better be careful where I say that. But I got reported on video. So it was only because a number of people who watched the game. It was the second semi-final against Central Districts at Footy Park, Amy Stadium, and it was only on the video. I was a bit of a larrikin when I played and still am, and I knew the Gowans boys pretty well. We're on the bottom of a pack, and I would normally niggle them and get into them, and we have a bit of a joke, and I gave them a bit of a bum pinch on the reverse video angle, and they put it on the big screen, and everyone kept asking me about it that night, and I'm like, what are you talking about? Anyway, Monday I got a phone call from the SAAFL, said I've been reported on video. Too many people rang up and complained. That's what happened. And Chris Gowans came to the tribunal, cost me a carton of Crownies. And he said, nah, this is stupid. This is ridiculous. He didn't do anything. So it was good. He got me off.
I want to know how many times you have to front up for someone saying, did you really pinch Chris Gowans on the arse or on the backside? I mean, is it one of those things that's dragged on for your whole career? Think of all the wonderful things you've done, and that one seems to get mentioned the most.
I'll tell you, every time we played at Elizabeth for the next 5 years, I reckon I played full back, and I'd stand in the goal square right behind the Central's cheer squad. You reckon they didn't have a long memory? Well, I'll tell you what. Everyone else kind of seemed to forget about it except for those guys out there. So now, bit of fun and games now. We have a bit of a laugh about it when we see the Gowans boys. So.
Walkies last week, beaten by Walkies, and got over us by 3 points the week before that. How do you view Walkies at the moment? Because they've really been the sneakers in the competition. They've just gone along.
Yeah, we played Walkerville early in the season, and they're a totally different side. I was really surprised at how much they've improved. They seem to have 10 different players from what they had in round 3 there, and yeah, they're going to be around the mark. They've got everything. They've got tall forwards. They've got really good fast on ballers, and they've got a good balance of smalls and talls. And I can't see why they're not going to finish in the top 3 come the end of the year.
Ross Trevor sitting in the top spot. You've got them this weekend, so it's a good test for you. Are they the best team right now that you've seen?
Apart from Payneham.
Yep. Payneham Norwood Union. Yeah.
No,
you climbed over the other week. Yep.
Yes. No. From what I've seen in the first round, they are head and shoulders the best side in the competition. I'll tell you more about that again on Saturday. But they've got a great balance, a good coach. They've got it's all set and they're in front of them this year. So they're definitely the team to beat from my perspective.
For you, are there any late players that might come back and join Old Iggies?
We've got a couple of guys. It's funny with the old scholar sides. We've lost 3 guys overseas, and there's a chance that if we could get 1 or 2 of them plus a couple of other smokies back, but not enough. Not enough. Phil.
How you found the comp? Because in the early days of amateur footy, there were games that were bloodbaths and whatever. How you found the standard of footy, and also I think the cleanness of the football in the divisions?
So super impressed with that. I think that the higher you go, the faster the game gets. So the old thuggery days are well and truly gone because those guys can't keep up. Really impressed with the difference from Div 3 to Div 2 in regards to its physicality. So much faster, bigger bodies. It's a lot harder work than Div 3. And I imagine it would be harder again to Div 1. But super impressed with the quality of the football that's played every week.
From a coach's standpoint, going up from Divi 3 to Divi 2, you've talked about the speed, the physicality. So obviously the training has to change a little bit. What's been the biggest change that you thought you've had to bring in at training to compensate for those changes in Divi 2?
I just think we had to get a little bit more professional in the way we went about the little things like training and preparing ourselves for a game. That's what I've tried to bring. I think that you've just got to be a whole lot more prepared. You've got to be fitter and stronger and faster and ready to go. I think every little team tactic makes a difference. We've lost 3 or 4 games this year by less than 10 points. So, all of those little things, especially we're sitting 3rd now, but there's 4 sides on the same wins as us. So come the end of the year, any little thing is going to make a difference, I think.
You talk about being close, and Port District's just that little bit just behind as well. They're not far off, so if they get a little bit of luck as well, they're going to be dangerous. You recently married. How has that impact on your life? Because there is a fair bit of time given to footy, and how does the bride see that?
Yeah, that's something I discussed before at the start of the year. Obviously, coaching. I didn't realise how much time coaching would be. You could sit there and you could put an infinite amount of time into coaching, as you guys well know. So that probably surprised me. So I've had to try and manage that a little bit better. Luckily, Amateur League has the June long weekend, so I was able to plan my honeymoon either side of that. So that helped. Halfway through the year, I got a good little breakaway with the wife, and Keely's happy with everything. So yeah, definitely a bit more of a juggling act.
Well, you can tell you're newly married because you discussed it. Wait till you've been there a bit longer and then you'll just be told. So, Joe, we really appreciate you coming in. Big game against Ross Trevor. Hope you can get the win, but it's time for us to have a look at the West End Lucky Player of the Week. And the lucky player, of course, wins that carton of West End beer. Time for us to go to a break. Stay with us. Still lots to come on Grassroots Footy.